Time for The Law and You, sponsored by Gig and Jancola. Join with us now. We've got attorney Christopher Jancola. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. Boy, it's a crazy day today.
It is.
Not a lot of people in here, but a lot going on.
I know, still a lot of energy. You and your partner, Mike, practice a variety of different types of law at your practice. What do you specialize in?
Absolutely. I do a lot of workers' compensation, Social Security, disability, and of course, personal injury. And Mike does our wills, trust, estates, and real estate.
Yeah, I know. Your head pops in on my shoulder like the little my conscience. I told you I rented a car recently, and
yes.
They were like, "Do you want to buy the $24 a day insurance?" And then Christopher Jancola was like, "Do it."
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
always better. Always better to be protected.
Take that advice.
Yeah. If something happens, you want to be protected.
Right. Especially something like that, going long distance. You see the car accident, claims, things like that. You deal with that. So better just to be protected. Today, though, we're going to be talking about workers' compensation, of course, one of your specialties.
Yes.
Today, the question is, how much will I get paid on workers' compensation? How exactly is this calculated? You said the numbers change?
Yes, yes. Okay, so every year, Pennsylvania comes out with the average weekly wage calculations, okay? So in general, though, the rule of thumb is 2/3 of whatever amount that your average weekly wage is normally. So before you get injured, whatever amount that is, there's a whole big form and calculation for that. I always ask the insurance companies, give me something called a statement of wages. And that statement of wages then does the calculation out over how long you've worked there, usually the last year, and figures out this is what your average weekly wage is. And then we do a calculation and get 2/3. However, there's multiple things and exceptions to that, as there is in the law. So the maximum amount of benefit that you can get on workers' compensation per week is, and I'm going to actually look at my little cheat sheet because it does change every year, $1,347 per week. Now that is for high wage earners. All right, that's the maximum you can make. But if you're an extremely high wage earner, that could be way less than your 2/3. On the other hand, if you are a low wage earner and make less than $748.32 per week, you get 90% of your wages. Okay, so they want to make sure that you can get as much money as possible on it. And if you are in the middle and make $1,010.25 to $748.33, you get a flat $673.50 per week. So it's more complicated than people think.
I didn't realize there was the exact calculation for that kind of stuff. Well, because, okay, you're thinking workers' compensation, you get hurt on the job. Is this talking about actually having time off where you can't be at work?
This would go into effect if you cannot work.
Right.
Then these calculations come into effect. So you get hurt at work, you hurt your back, your doctor says you cannot go back to work. Or you get hurt at work and you have to have a surgery and you're going to be off X amount of times. Or you get hurt, I get this a lot of times, and my person has a very heavy lifting job and they hurt themselves and they could maybe do light duty work, but there's no light duty at their employer, so then they're off of work, then they get paid this weekly amount.
But this would only last so long, right?
Well, what happens is that there are ways that the insurance companies will try to get you off. They can do something called a labor market survey, and they can say that you can do another job with somebody else. They can say that you're completely better and send you to one of their doctors that kind of gives a report that says you're better, even though your doctor says they aren't. And they can file something after 2 years to cap your benefits at approximately 9.5 years. So there's lots of ways, and that's why you need an attorney for these types of cases.
Yeah, so many little caveats, because I would think, then there's the whole aftercare if you need physical therapy, right? That gets covered in some cases. Or I would just think if you're that injured where you really can't go back to work realistically, wouldn't that just turn into a disability? Short-term disability or...
Sometimes, but a lot of people don't have short-term disability benefits, so all they have is workers' comp.
Okay.
Then you might be able to get on Social Security disability, which I do. However, you have to look and see, because Social Security disability and workers' comp benefits affect each other. And if you get a settlement from workers' compensation, that offsets how much money you get from Social Security disability.
Yeah.
So you need to have an attorney that does all of these things, again, so that they know how this all works, if you especially are not going to be able to go back to work in any capacity.
Right. You need someone to walk that journey with you because, like you said, there's so many little nuances with workers' compensation. Tell us how we can get a hold of you guys if people are looking for some advice with this.
Absolutely. Give us a call at 814-946-1606 or go to gig-law.com.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
You're welcome.